All right, let's see. Nice. Closing my gap though. Pull my indicators in here. Yeah, we're bouncing. Look at the 1 minute. All right, guys, welcome back. See some of us getting back in here now. I'm gonna go down the list real quick while we have about 12 minutes before market opens and kind of see some of our moving stocks that's been on our coffee and stocks list for the most part. BGI broke that 273 level Wednesday, and I was looking at this going back to 366. One thing I want to point out about it is the fact that it's going back above that long-term trend that we had identified. I think that's going to provide it with the momentum to continue moving above that 366. But all the indicators are pretty high right now, so we could see some slight pullback. Good morning, Antoine. How you doing? Of course, GME has been bouncing up and down for the most part. Found support on that 113. Continue to ride that level. Still showing some movement to the upside. Yes, indeed, Chad. For sure. I think it's time everybody's been waiting for to start making some greens, basically. Rig was added to our list this morning. It was showing strong uptrends. I'll go ahead and take the time to identify that real quick so we can track it moving forward and see how it sticks to those levels. This is somewhat what we're looking at on the trade. Give or take, you can adjust that just a little bit based on this right here. What I'm trying to capture is that right there. So I'm going to be watching that longer term. I'll be doing better if I make some money today, of course. And one thing that you have to keep in mind, man, is, don't allow one opportunity to take you away from optimizing on another. I can't say that enough, and I know that it seems like a lot of tunnel vision on some of the stocks that you feel very strongly about, but you're ultimately, holding yourself in one position, missing another. So Palantir, PLTR trading sideways for the most part for the past 2 weeks or so. We've been identifying this as a strong buy zone. As you see, it's stuck to that pretty heavily. I might with the markets pulling back up today, And what's weird about PLTR is that for the most part, it has no, not what I wanted. For the most part, it hasn't reacted too heavily to how the market's pulling back, which is a strong signal. This is a compression buy zone, sticking strong above that 22.95. As you may know, a lot of our stocks broke those support levels that they had developed, and retested lower support levels that were previously there before reaching the price points that they did. Um, but definitely something to look at longer term. Great company, software company, focuses on providing technology platforms for ciphering through data, basically. Um, Analytics and stuff like that. They have non-government and government-based contracts. I did some DD on it for you guys the other day. Still sticking true to that. So definitely looking at potentially holding this, getting into this and holding it longer term. Snow is another one that pulled back. I identified that buy zone right here in these purple levels. I will turn that green so we can continue looking at it from that standpoint. And it dipped down below and never broke that bottom support level around the 235. I'm going to bring in my indicators here to see what the momentum's looking like on the time frames, so we can kind of get an idea of what to expect for it if you're looking for this longer term. Looks like we're going to try to bounce off the 30, which will bring the 1 hour up. So ultimately, following the markets with the pullbacks that we've seen into yesterday, actually bounced all the way back up to 278. So like this is a prime example of an intraday swing option trade that we could have played on that dip to the bottom here. We could have bought an option. It would have jumped almost $50 for us. With the markets coming back in today and us showing this swing on the 10-minute here, like I said, I expected higher time frames to follow. I might do an option on it if I can afford it in my smaller account. I know I can in my account. So I'm gonna look at that, doing it there. And also, I want to take a second to look at it here as well, just so we can see if there's anything affordable in it. Typically, I look 7 to 14 days out with swing trades that I'm going after, and as you can see, these are just ridiculous numbers. But it's all about that delta right here that makes a difference, and then the open interest being around the being above 1,000 is the trades that I go after. So, but these are ridiculous, so I'm not even gonna attempt that with my smaller account. And I started a smaller account at $100, and it's currently up to $382. I started that the week of the market pullback because I wanted to use it as an example for you all to basically see how you can take a small amount of money and basically duplicate it with the processes that we're trading here. I took some losses, so I'm actually down from where I actually was. I think it got up to like $530 at its peak. And that was on some swings that we were looking at. CCIV pulled back heavily, hasn't corrected itself based on the market pullback itself, so definitely a concern there. EBIX, I think JDub provided this for us. It's currently still trading sideways due to that litigation that it's in. Bitcoin determines our movements in our Bitcoin plays, showing a swing here to the upside, potentially breaking that 49,194 again. Pfizer, PFE bounced pretty well yesterday, but ultimately was pulled back once the rest of the markets pulled back. It actually was bouncing the opposite direction there before, but then got pulled down once everybody started freaking out on the markets overall. Looks like it's trying to edge up higher. The app is finished. I am battling Google right now on getting it uploaded, and going back and forth with them about what's required in order to get it on. I was actually working on that first thing this morning and the new requirements that they provided me. I'm not sure if you're an Apple user or an Android user, but it will most likely be on the Android platform, the Google Play Store before Apple, because I have to pay Apple every year for my developer account, and I'm waiting for that to be approved. It's been paid for, but Like I said, I'm waiting for it to be approved and go from there. I need to look at where Apple is, and then I expect to. Oh, excuse me, didn't mean to hit the mic, but expect to have the Android app version of it up pretty soon. So keep an eye on that, and I'll definitely let you guys know. DAW. Let's see. Pull that up on the side here. Pull that out of here. All right. But moving forward through the list, we're looking at Rolls Royce. It hopped up to about 160. It's been trading sideways for the most part, even though the market's pulling back, which is a good strength signal in the stock to pay attention to. Still stuck on pending with Apple, so I gotta hit them up and see what's going on with them. The SPY, of course, we all know I've been talking about going green. Looking forward to hit those 386 levels, but I really want to see how it reacts to the 380, 350. I'm not sure if some of you were able to join us in our earlier session before I hopped off, but we're looking at it headed back to 386. I'm looking at a potential call there. I'll ride it until we get to the 383, and if we find that resistance there again, I'll hop out of that. If the resistance is there and strong enough to show momentum loss back to the downside, then I'll get out. But overall, I mean, it's at a low point, so I expect it to be a catalyst moving up, which will ultimately bring up the rest of the markets. We got about 3 minutes, so I'm getting ready to make that call here in a second. I'm going to see how it opens up. If it pulls back a little bit, I'm going to wait to buy those calls that I was talking about. And buy them at cheaper prices. But I will have to make confirmations that it's going to move back up, though. ARCC currently trading sideways. I identified that 1873 level that we had to get above, and as you can see, it got pulled back down a little bit. But a strong growth stock continues moving higher. It just hasn't been above that 1873 in a while. I don't think it's ever been above it. Yeah, so as you can see, it's played a level of resistance before, and it just hasn't ever traded above that. So I was really interested in watching how this momentum pushes it to those levels. It's going to trend sideways again. As you can see, it broke back down below. Next one is INFY. Same scenario, trying to get above that 1914, just seems to have some issues doing so. But as you can see, is a strong momentum swing showing right here to the upside. Could potentially do it. GM's one of our EV plays, long-term growth stock, great for the EV. I know they initially announced that they were going after about 11 EV vehicles, but I read something where they were talking about having a 34 vehicle catalog come out. Another one, Volkswagen, said that they're only going to have, I think it was Volkswagen, said they're only going to have nothing but EVs by like 2030 or something like that, 2032. Another one to look at is Ford. It's topping out around that 1193, having some issues finding the support above it, but showing momentum signs to break above it moving forward. I don't know how long it's been since it's been above these levels. It's been all the way since 2017 or 2018, March of 2018, so almost 3 years to date. And we're finally getting back to that. Looks like it'll swing back up to, potentially $8 once we do, $18, excuse me. So something to pay attention to, definitely. They're getting into the EV field as well, already releasing their Mustang, and I expect them to follow with some trucks. So I haven't kept up with them on any DD though, so definitely something to watch for. We looked at VAL earlier. It's currently trading at 1750 in pre-market. Having some issues around that 1830, so pay attention to it, how it reacts to those levels. If we expect this to continue higher, then we're looking at potentially going back to the 30s. Is something I would like to point out. That'll be our top line to pay attention to ultimately. So let me go ahead and identify that. Market just opened, so I'm going to switch back to the SPY for a minute and see how it reacted to that market open, and go from there with my expectations for the day. Let me pull in the lower time frames. Looks like it's trying to swing down a little bit, but I expect it to stay above that 380. I'm going to watch it to see if it stays above the 380 before I buy my call. I'm going to pull this out. Like I said, I do my intraday option swing trades on a 7 to 14 day basis. I'm looking at this going back to potentially 386. So it would cost me about 218 to buy it. But like I said, I need to make sure that we're coming back up before I do. I don't want to get caught in a pullback from market open. And it looks like we might have some slight momentum loss from pre-market. I'm hoping that it bounces off of this purple line. If it does, that's a what I would call an intraday trend line that I've been watching since this morning session. If it bounces off of that, then that's when I'm going to initiate my calls. So it's just being patient here. If it breaks below it, then I'll watch for it to hit that lower trend line on the midterm downward channel we've been watching, which is about 374. If it breaks below 374, then we're going back to 368 as I expected, and I will be buying puts at that point. But these are confirmations I'm looking for in the SPY first. So looks like we're teeter-tottering on that 380 level. I want to see what the 1 minute's showing me. And just be kind of careful before we assume that just because the market's popped back up, you know, after hours pre-market, that it's now time to buy into the reversal from the downside. So that's something I don't want people to get ahead of themselves and get caught, because you saw this fake out here on the 10-minute where we saw an EMA crossover, and then it ultimately broke below that. So if it breaks below the EMAs, which is right there at that level, that's why I want to watch it, because this could be a pullback, a continued pullback. Like I said, I was going after the 386. It's currently at 201, so that's why I'm waiting. As we see this pullback a little bit, I can buy a better opportunity on the trade. And what I'm doing is, like I said, I started that small account, personal account, just to set an example of what you can do with $100 in the markets. You can easily multiply a small account into a larger buying power account. And so that's what I'm going to be doing here. Is I'm going to use that $300 to basically swing trade the entire market. You see we're bouncing right back above those 380, so that might be my confirmation we're going to stay above those levels. I want to just make sure, though. As you can see, it's churning right now, so as soon as I see the green light, I'm going to go for it. I'll go ahead and get this set up to do so. But ultimately, we can look at the list and see that we're seeing a lot more green than we were before. Some trades still down. GWACW Shad is up 87%. MKD up 11% this morning. BGI up 8% around 340. ONTX is actually pulling back up. CAN up 5%. We can look at those a little bit, but before we do, I really want to watch this market before we speculate on any trades. You see it's bouncing off of that top 13 EMA. If it breaks below that, that's going to be concerning. I think the bottom's going to let out and it's going to fall back here. If it breaks below that, then we'll see an EMA crossover back to the downside. We could potentially go back to 374, and then that would be our next level to pay attention to on determining where the markets are going. But, you know, if I would have jumped into the markets thinking, yes, you know, we're going back up, so on and so forth, then I would have got caught and started losing money immediately, breaking down, as you can see. Probably easing back off of those runs that we've seen from this morning's pre-market, which was about a $3-4 jump. I'm going to look at our trading log too to see where the overall markets are. The score is high. It's at a 9. The VIX is down 8%. Overall markets, U.S. equities are up 1.12%. Even the international markets went all green. Crude's up 3%, and that's the entire oil industry, by the way. 2.1 on precious metals with copper. So we have this high level score, and typically I do the reverse of that for the simple fact that it's so high we need to pull back a little bit in order for it to settle. So I'm going to go ahead and track that now. Under market open, and apparently I need to go in and fix a cache issue where it holds back displaying that information immediately for us. We did pre-market at 7:30. The overall U.S. Overall markets overall is down 1.46% from where it was this morning. U.S. equities up about 0.5% from where it was earlier this morning. S&P up about 47. So definitely watching this a little bit more before I make my determination. As you can see, we're seeing that momentum loss on the MACD. We're already high on the RSI, so some pullbacks expected. Volume weighted MACD showing some pullback. People probably taking profits off this morning's jump just to secure them, and in concern that, still based off of yesterday's price action. So definitely something to watch out for, that we can continue pulling back. But ultimately hoping for this to push back to the 386s so we can see some of the gains that people have lost over the past few weeks and some of the trades they've been holding. So definitely have to be on the lookout on how the SPY reacts. Like I said, we had already had an EMA crossover fake out is what I call it. I want to see how it reacts to this 378.86 level. But looks like it's just churning sideways for the most part between the 379 and 380. But coming down though in the 5 minutes, so that's concerning. I guess I should go ahead and start preparing myself. As you can see, that option I was going to buy that was originally like 210 is already down about $30. But I need to find my alternative put option on this swing, and that would be around the 371. 372 areas, because that's where we topped out at yesterday. And I could buy, I could be smart about this and just go ahead and buy like a $100 contract around the 357. If it drops down from 379 to 376, I can expect this to jump up to about $100. Jump up $100, so I can make $100 off the trade. Now, if I was going to do that though, I should have bought it at the 380 level. I would already be making some money there. Of course, it's better to buy in the money option contracts due to the delta being so high. I would make much more, or you can risk less and then make a lower amount of delta. But if we're going to drop out here, we expect it to be heavy because of basically the turnaround. People having high expectations that the markets are actually going to pull up for us, and then they don't. So then investor sentiment breaks out basically to the low end with that concern. As you can see, that table is now turning red as we're pulling back. We had an overall score of 9, and now it's already down to 7, and we're down to 378 already. So I think it's a little too late for my comfort level to buy into a put option on the SPY. I'm gonna wait until we hit this longer term trend, which is about 377.54, and see how it reacts right there before I make my determination on moving forward. So whether I'm going to buy a call option or a put is what I mean by that. And I'm mainly focusing on these intraday swing trades on options for the SPY due to basically hedging my account is what I'm going for. Ways to basically play the market. Also, while you guys are here, if there's any stocks you want to look at, of course, I think it's going to be another day of basically watching the markets and making sure the overall market, and making sure we're not getting killed on too many fronts. A lot of the EV plays down right now. If you're interested in holding them long term though, great opportunity to hop in them. That option trade I was going to buy, the call, let's see where we're currently at. It's at 164, so I'm actually getting it pretty cheap. KOS 354. I'll add it to our list. I don't think we have it on there. J-Dub. Good morning, by the way. I wasn't sure if you were with us this morning or not, but good morning to you. SPY breaking below 378. So what I'm going to do is look on the lower time frames and see if we're going to see a reversal. It's right off that trend line that I was looking at. It's oversold, right? So I pointed this out to you guys yesterday, and I want to do this in real time again. It could bounce out of that oversold status and then rebound back below it at a lower price point, giving me an opportunity to buy the call option at a cheaper price. But I do think that it's regardless, either it's going to bounce straight up from here or bounce off of here. Okay, cool. I didn't know, Jada, if you were in there or not. So don't get too excited on buying that call option just yet. I want to really get in there and make sure that's what occurs first. But that's typically what happens on the SPYs. We'll bounce out of that territory, that oversold status, and fall right back into it. You'll see us churn to the side here, but I think it's going to bounce right off of this area right here, and we go up. If it breaks below it, though, we're going back down, continuing down. See? Exactly. So this might be my buying opportunity into that call option I was looking at. It's currently at 161, so I would have been down already about $80, or I'm sorry, $60 or so on the option trade. Still waiting for that RSI to complete its downturn. I think it's going to pull back a little bit more. Yep. Let's look at our longer time frames. See how healthy we are there. First, the 1 hour was going green going into pre-market, showing straight strength for a swing to the upside. But I'm looking at that 1 minute just to basically time my entry into this put option. I might not be able to get it at its lowest price, but I can basically confirm that, you know, that's the direction we're going to go. I don't want to buy into it too soon. And of course, I never want to get in too late. But you see that curve that I was talking about always happens. And so after that curve occurs, it's going to come out of that oversold status, and then we'll see the markets bounce. See, look at that. So now I could potentially buy into this about 161 from what it's selling, 159 right now. Let's see. All right, we're breaking below it. I think it's going to bounce off of this. So I'm going to go ahead and hop in there. 155 is what I'm buying it for. Bounce right off of it. Let me go over here and make sure that I'm not missing the opportunity to get in. Already back to 157. 160. Because I'm basically pushing my computer to the max, I'm missing buy opportunities because my processing power is being overwhelmed. I'm missing that opportunity. It's already back up to 168. Wow. That's annoying. 165, 164. Yeah, I don't think it's dipping down any lower than this, so I'm going to go ahead and initiate. Wait, hold on. Be patient. 164. If you want to come down a little bit more and fill my order, that'd be great. Doesn't look like it's going to happen, so I'm going to go ahead and hop in that trade for 166. Filled my order. So I just bought an option contract for 166, or 167 is where it closed at, and I'm already up. We're about to bounce back up here off of that lower RSI level. So down just a little bit, about $2 as it churns sideways. But as you can see, we're picking back up. So moving forward, we'll watch that trade as we go through it. Currently down about 1% on it so far as we churn sideways. If it breaks that trend line, I'm getting out of the trade and reversing to my my put options that I identified earlier. I don't think that's going to happen though. The 1 minute's showing that reversal signal on the MACD coming out of the RSI like I expected, but bounced straight off of that line like I stated earlier, and that's what we were looking for. Now it could come back down just a little bit on us. And I'm going positive now. So, you know, that's timing for you right there that I wanted to take time to look at you all, look at with you all, is basically trying to time it. And like I said, if it comes back out, I'm not always going to be right. Never say that I'm always going to be right. If it comes below this level, I'm getting out of the trade. Now, how I'm setting up this account is I spent about half of, well, about a third of the account on basically buying this option. That leaves me with about $215 to use in my personal account to buy a reversal option at the top. If we get to 386 and we see that, or we even get to 383 and we see a reversal there, I can buy a put option to catch it on the way down. As you can see, we are picking up as expected. I'm currently green. We're gonna ride that. Now we'll watch that trade as we go through, but you see the bounce, and you can expect the smaller time frame, the higher time frames to start following. One thing I want to point out is the fact that we bounced right off of that 55 EMA that I pay attention to, and look at it jump. There we go. So I'm already up 5% as we run higher. Strong surge coming out of those levels. I'm happy with where I bought it at. Currently at 5% on the trade, but does that make sense? Did that, you guys watching that with me, was that helpful in any kind of way? And identifying, using these momentum indicators to basically identify reversals and price action and stuff like that. If you can give me your feedback on how that went. But if you look right here in pre-market, we saw the same trend, the same sell-off, the same basically harmonic trend. It wasn't a full harmonic trend or candle, excuse me. Harmonics basically meaning, if you see a sell-off candle, it's basically matched with a buying candle. But we saw this breakout here. We're seeing the same thing here going into market open. It's pulling back a little bit, but ultimately, I think it's going to bounce as these indicators are showing it will. And even if it comes down, like I said, as long as it doesn't go below this this trend line here, then I think we're good to go. Cat Knight, I think you're new here. Are you new here? Or I haven't seen you here before, but thank you for being with us if you have or haven't been, and giving me your feedback. But pretty much, I feel pretty comfortable with the trade that I made on that option call, and I'm pretty comfortable with knowing my trend lines, and where to get out and stuff like that. As you can see, it's pulling back as we speak, but still comfortable with it. Let me see where I'm at. I'm probably a little bit negative on the trade. Yeah, now I'm down 5%. So just as quick as it was to pop up, we popped down a little bit, but I still think ultimately on the lower trend lines, the higher time frames, we'll start seeing that reversal indicator come in where these red MACDs will turn light red, and we'll see that reversal back to the upside. Only down 2% right now at these levels, so I'm not concerned. Most of you already know. Oh, there we go. So it looks like I'm about to get out of here for the time being, unless I see anything of a reversal indicator, but it looks like we're trying to go red. Yeah, I think I'm getting out. So down about $15 on that trade. And trying to figure out if I want to hold or not, because that could be a slight fake out breakdown. So not to get ahead of myself, because we can pop right back above that trend line. That's why we put that there, to monitor how it moves intraday. Intraday being since yesterday's trend. of dropping down to 372 and where it's currently at. It did dip pre-market below those levels, but the reason I don't do diagonal trend lines is because it seems like you always feel like you need to readjust them to properly gauge the movements, and basically that would be somewhere like right there, but I'm basing it off of that right now. So let's see what happens. It actually did it a little bit later, looking at it from the 1 minute of that going back below that RSI level that I was telling you about, where it'll bounce out of it and then come back down. You could find a better entry. So I ultimately could have bought this at about 150, 147, 150 versus 167 where I hopped into it. And that was a perfect example of me getting ahead of myself before confirming a few things. Ultimately, that RSI double bounced is what I call it. So let's just, watch and see what's happened. I'm still holding on. I didn't get out. Currently down about 10% on it. But I don't think, well, before I say that, we've been tracking this pretty well. And I want to continue doing that so that we build consistency in our trading, in our determinations. And as you can see, we've been watching this shorter term. Let me pull some of these price ranges out so we can get a clearer view. Pull some of this stuff out so we can clearly see the chart and how it correlates with those trend lines we've been paying attention to. Of course, it's still jumbled because you guys know we've been watching this very closely to identify our reversal in the markets. But these two red lines, for anyone that's new here, has been a shorter time frame or shorter term trend, descending trend that we've seen. Let me reset the chart at a little bit better. So this is our midterm, these two green lines. This is our long-term trend, and within that midterm trend line, we identified this shorter time frame, and I'm using this purple line as my intraday. All right, just to get some clarity in what we're looking at. And as you can see, we're actually bouncing off of that shorter term trend line. And I had that set there because of this right here. So I'm going to move it back. But the fact that we'll be trading on top of that ultimately makes me believe we're going to bounce back to the upside. This large jump came off of great reports from earnings. Of course, the markets are down due to the yield curve. I'm currently down about 18-20% on the trade. I could hop out of here now if I wanted to, due to the fact that we're going back into that trend line, and it could ultimately lead us back below this midterm we've been watching, or we could bounce off of it. So I'm down about $32 on it. On the overall small account, though, I'm up, 250%. And that's hedging the markets. So, strong signals to the downside. Disappointing, honestly. If I were to give you my personal opinion about it all, it's very disappointing that even with good job numbers, we're seeing pullbacks like this. Let me see if there's any news that was released in the time frame that we've been watching this. Well, the White House just announced, their economic advisor notes that U.S. jobs hole is still deeper than that of the Great Recession. Says PPP resources will be targeted to smallest firms. Has a long way to go in job recovery. Says unevenness of employment crisis persists. See where our overall markets are. Mind you, I'm still holding on to this option call. Currently down about 23% on it, unfortunately. All because we couldn't stay above that trend line. That purple one, that is. But it did the double dip RSI. I think it's going to continue moving up. I honestly could use probably another $100 towards an additional call that I could buy cheap right now. That being right around the 387, which is actually $1 up. and I bought it, or I am buying it now, and filled my order at 104. All because we're at the bottom of this RSI dip is why I did it. Now, the original plan was I was going to buy a call option up to 386 and then potentially, or watch it at the 383 levels, 383.50 to be precise. If it was rejected there, I was going to sell that call and then buy a put option back to the downside, back to about the 374s is what I was expecting, and that's all based off of that midterm trend line we were following. And then bounce off of it with another call option back to the upside. But basically what I'm seeing is we're seeing the same thing, same trends we're breaking down basically. You see this quick green candle and then a large red candlestick behind it. But yesterday's action was due to Jay Powell and his concerns about the 10-year treasury yield. So that's something also you can watch, gauging the markets. On the original call that I made, down about 23% and pulling back about 2% on this. But rounding off for the most part is what I'm looking for at this point, is whether or not we will. Still pulling back. I could have bought some of these at so much more cheaper prices. The first one being at now 122 is where I could have bought it. The second one being at 95 cents or $95 a contract. But it happens. See how we react to these 37 right there at the 37.5 or 375.44s if we even make it to those levels. Now, in all of this, we have always and will continue to focus on stocks that are performing the best. One of those being EYES, EYES. I think we actually looked at that in our watch list before. Let me see. No, we don't have it. But it's actually performing pretty well, up 67%. Pretty sure they released some news. CLPS is doing well. So reason I'm pointing those out is finding stocks that do well in market downturns like we're seeing. As you can see, we're currently picking back up after that second RSI dip. I thought it was right here, but it was actually just a continuation of the original one. So I was a little early on assuming that, and that's the mistake I made. But as you can see, we're currently trading in that shorter term trend again, and finding some issues getting back above it. Going back to my overall account, let's see where I'm at. So only down 1% on the 1.5% on the secondary, now 2% on the secondary option call that I made, and still sitting at about 23% negative on the original one, 22 now and a half, flat on the second one I bought, and going positive. So watch out for these double RSI bumps. I wanted to pay attention to that with you guys this morning so you can kind of use those as identifiers for reversals, no matter what stock that you're in, because they typically all do the same. That's one thing that I've started to figure out. As they'll go into an oversold status, you'll see a rebound off the bottom end of that because people have scanners that look for that, algos that look for that, and they jump into these trades around those times, and then you'll see them pull back again for a second dip. But ultimately, it looks like we might be shifting from that downward pull. I'm looking for a confirmation on the 5-minute. 10-minute going red, but the RSI is pretty low, so I'm sitting about 45.50, allowing for headspace on the top end. But when RSI sits around 50, it has just as much chance as going up as going down. Just to give you an update, I'm up 7% on the second option I bought and down negative 17% on the first one. So pretty much only down $25 off of this small account. And we'll keep watching this moving forward. With the markets pulling back, you can expect other stocks that we've been watching to be, down. So that's why I'm not necessarily focusing on those right now. Anybody got any questions or feedback? If this is helping you at all in determining these moves back below 377, I want this back above 377 though. Ultimately, for the simple fact that we'll be back above that smaller time frame trend line that we've been following. It's about 9 o'clock, so I'm scanning the markets now to see if there's any opportunities we can get in. Of course, it seems like international stocks are the only ones that are looking like prime real estate, back above that 377, by the way. Let me look at my watch list. Oh yeah, we had the watch list pulled up. Let's pull up our scanners, go through them for a second. These are what I call my opportunity scanners. I think someone step in and fix this. Yeah. CNR. Let's have a look at it. Up back to 377.50. Thank you. Let's look at CNR. Reset my chart. I'm going to look at it from the 4-hour ultimately. See how we're doing there. Looks like a swing. Swing being on the MACD. RSI going into oversold status. This could break above 350. Continue moving. 1350, I'm sorry. Continue moving higher. What I want to do is come in and identify this previous support level that we had before. Which is about the 1305. It needs to break through that, and it looks like it has the momentum to do that and find support to continue moving higher, potentially around something that stands out to me the most are these levels right here, due to the resistance it found between 2016 and 2017. So this is the price range I'm looking at trading in if we can get above 1305 to the 1776. That's about a $4.71 spread, which is about 20 to 30%. If I'm doing the math right in my head, I can pull up my spreadsheet for us real quick and do it real quick. Had a calculator I built. There it is. 1776, 1305. If this were to jump from 1305 to 1776 moving forward, you can look at a 36% gain on the trade. Let me do this: 1305 and then 1776. Currently at 1273. If you were to get into this right now and it were to go back to retest that 1776 resistance level next, then you're looking at potential 40%. So these are the opportunities that I'm scanning for in the markets all day, every day. And most of the trades that I provide for you are based off of that. Is our profit margin spread, basically, of where it's currently at and where it can go. Look at this on the 4-hour real quick. Looks like we're swinging to retest these resistance levels. And I'll identify that first to then determine, I'm going to make that my mid-high resistance level. And this being support now around the $18 level. That orange line that was already there is where most transactions have, it's the price point where most of the transaction has been made and completed. So that's why you're seeing it find strong support. We're currently about $3 above that. So could definitely have a downward swing on it. I'm not saying it couldn't. But buying into this right now and simply retesting those 2309 levels, 23, let's see, would give us about a 10% swing, and that's over the course of, let's check the shorter term time frame on it. Whoa, why are you doing that? Not snapping. Oh, I have to pull my settings up real quick. So that could be back at those levels based on this current momentum by the 8th, which is Monday. So it's a little short time frame. I would be a little bit more gracious and pull it back a little bit. Probably by the 9th, you could get at least 10% off of it. And then what I'm going to do is see how those levels correlate with the previous price action. And it looks like $23 has been a level of resistance before, and almost played close to a level of support, but it was closer to the 24.52s. And then the next price range being right there above that 29.97 that the stock would have to retest and get above moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and identify that as my top line resistance I would pay attention to if I were to get into this trade right now. Of course, this bottom line being our level of support. And if it were to jump to those levels, those 29.97s, then you're looking at a potential 43% spread. So we have a 10% profit margin minimum up to a 43% top line spread. I like that trade. Some more coming in here. Waiter is showing signals of bouncing. Let's go check it out real quick. Look at it from 4 hour. Let me see where my account's at. All right, so I'll give you an update before we go into Waiter. I'm currently positive on all of my calls this morning, up 5% on the original one that I made, and 3%, or 5% on the second one I made, and 3% on the original one. Is that correct? Or is that backwards? But ultimately, the spot is now bouncing up. So we were right in confirming the reversal was around this area. It was using that RSI bounce to determine it a little bit better. And as you can see, we're currently trading at $379. Currently up about $50 on the account. So this $100 account is now at $430 overall. So doing pretty well. Pretty happy with that type of performance over the past few weeks. And this is all in a down market. So it's basically riding the swings, identifying the swings where it should swing at, where you can have your expectations set, and then basically can providing confirmations on those expectations. Bouncing strong. As you can see, we had that MACD reversal. Once this blue line hits that red one, I expect it to take off. I want to see how it reacts to the 381, but ultimately the 383. It's a good price to jump into. What's a good price to jump into Tesla? We looked at Tesla a little bit earlier. We can go back to it. I said that if we broke below the 607, which it has, that this is potentially going back to 500. Now, I might get a lot of criticism and feedback for saying something like that. Or did I say 600? 500. 502 is the next support level. And as you can see, it's showing EMAs to the downside. Let me pull this out because it's irrelevant now. We broke below that level, and ever since we did, that's when the EMAs started crossing. Now, I'm only saying that based on how the momentum is. I'm looking at getting into it around the 500s in my larger account. So I'm holding back just for the better opportunity. But at the same time, I say that it's currently oversold on the daily. So, this can actually just be a dip below that support level, and it can bounce right back above it, which we ultimately need because we're trying to build our EV portfolio. And a lot of the EVs are being pulled down by that. Back to this, we're at 378. But so watch how it reacts to that 607. If it goes to retest that level again and gets rejected, and continue to show momentum to the downside, then we're going back to about 502. I think what's the level. I'll go back to it for a second. One thing that I'm paying attention to is this Ema crossover that occurred back on the 2nd. And as you can see, it's been topping out at that 13 EMA. That's why I use it. It's pretty on point. I use the 13, 34, and 55. 34 being in the middle, 55 being right there, and it helps me identify my crossovers. But one thing to pay attention to is the RSI. It's oversold pretty heavy. Bounce up, bounce back down, bounce back up, and now it looks like we're headed back down. But the fact that it's so oversold, we could actually see this reverse and top back above that 607 level. I would pay attention. You could buy it for 590 right now, but waiting $17 more for a confirmation would provide me with more confidence. And what I mean by waiting for that 607 is seeing how it reacts to that level now, as it was previously a level of support. Could it now reverse to a level of resistance and we bounce down? Or could the stock rebound back above it and find that support that it's supposed to or should have this morning and continue moving back to the upside? With it being in such an oversold status on all of these larger time frames. Once again, I want to identify the fact that I can pull this up a little bit. You see these double RSI bounces. Into it, out of it, and back into it. So we could jump off of this. Definitely a large catalyst platform that it's building in order to continue moving higher. So pay attention to that. Going back to my SPY trades real quick, just to give you an update. Up 30% on my 387 calls that I bought for $100, and then down less than 1% on my 386 calls that I bought for 167. It's currently sitting at 163. So slight pullback that we're seeing in the SPY, but we're back on that trend line that we identified, that purple trend line. So that's confirmation that I expected to go back to 386. I still have about $110 to catch. Once it goes up, either it goes to 380, 350, finds some rejection and pulls back, or it breaks through that level and continues moving higher to 386. I expect it to probably bounce above it just a little bit before breaking back below it, if it's going to stick to this trend line, or if it's going to perform a triple top, as they call it, where it hits that top midterm trend line and bounces out and continues moving forward. Seeing some pullback on these accounts, down to 11% on the 387 call, and down 15% on on the 386. So I'm gonna check the news to see if there's anything causing this. Added 379,000 jobs. I mean, we had great numbers come out this morning, and it was weird to watch as the numbers were released. The markets were actually pulling back. We're breaking that trend line right here, which is a concern. I want to see how it reacts to this one. But this should have been a compression zone for this to bounce out, which it did. It just seemed to get rejected around the 381s. 381.15 to be precise. So we can go through the list and see how some of these stocks are reacting. I shouldn't have changed that because it was set up where I could go through and see, some of the stocks we were looking at that were up this morning, where they're currently at now. Most of which are still the same. KOS was one that J-Dub brought up. We can look at it. I don't think I've had the opportunity to go through this, or we actually identified this longer term trend that it's been in. That's what it was. But we haven't really looked at like price levels and key levels to pay attention to on it. So I'll take a second to do that with you, J-Dub, while we're here and watching this trade. 352, of course, needs to be a new level of support. I'm not sure where you're at in this trade, J-Dub. If you can tell me price average, or you got out of it, that's what it was. And you felt like you should have held it. And that's ultimately something I feel like I need to figure out how I can help you a lot better, is when we do these trade analysis, these technical analysis, specifically, how I can share that with you so that you can use it moving forward, and paying attention to where it's at in its trend line and stuff like that. I'm not sure where you sold out at. If you could let me know that as well, and when you sold it, so that we can track how it would have performed moving forward. I'm going to look at the overall. You remember that overall score I was showing you guys earlier, where we were at 9 and I expected some type of pullback? We're at 1 now, overall. The VIX is still down -1% for the day, but it's picked up 6% since pre-market, about 7:30 Central Time. Everything else has been red since our last time that we tracked it at 8:35, right after market open. So we saw some pretty strong pullback in the market overall. Now, overall market's down 1.72%. SPY is down about 1 full percent. which I think actually took all the gains from the SPY that it had made from the beginning of the year. Go back to our watch list just to check out some of these opportunities. I also had our, and I'm probably going to have to hop off here in about 15 minutes. What I'll do is, I'll look at a few more of these that we had on the list. Our scanner, our opportunity scanners, like I call them. This broke out to 420, about 423 this morning, 425, and hit that resistance level. So if we had been watching this, we could have looked for that to happen. And I expect that to happen if you continue to try to get into it. I'm pretty sure they released some type of news this morning and caused it to do this. Let me pull this over just a little bit, like so. And I'll get rid of the active trader so we can have some more space. There we go. And then let's click on that. Let's see what news that they pulled out. I'm killing my processor on this computer with all the stuff I have going on. Okay, so Wader Holdings is now going to be partnering with someone to sell cannabis. Strange. It's pursuing a partnership with Flow Payments to create a compliant marketplace delivery and payment solution for dispensaries selling cannabis. That's nice. A delivery service for it? You know, we've heard all types of different things, but man, that's nice. You don't even have to go anywhere now. You just have it straight, you know, delivered straight to you. I traded Wader back in the COVID push when it was a COVID play. It was about 110, and we had like 10,000 shares of it, and it jumped to like, I think it was like 430 or something like that. We made like 30K in a day off that stock, man. It was crazy. Nuts. But to see it trading heavy, you know, pretty strong around these 326 levels, pretty nice. Go ahead and do some technical analysis on it real quick. Identify our support levels. I'm not sure how interested people are in it, but the owner, Tillman Fertitta, is a very strong entrepreneur, and back in, you know, he owns Landry's restaurants and stuff like that, but he also owns this. Very strong entrepreneur, and I feel like if you get into any of his stocks, you're going to be set. Of course, there's going to be market downturns just like what we're watching, but I actually like this play. I haven't heard of any other stocks that are doing this, or any other companies rather that are doing this, which is definitely something to pay attention to. I'm not going to hold too long on this one though. We'll look at NTIC or NTCO, excuse me. I'm actually going to buy a little bit more Wader on my Ema account while I'm sitting here looking at it. Do my calculations on how much I'm going to get. What was that? WRATRH currently trading at 327. Expecting this to rebound to 425, 426. So I'm going to get, on my MI account, I'm going to get about 611 shares on the trade. And I'm going to, for 327. Okay. Bought it for 329. And looking at our second trade that we were gonna look at for a second was NTCO. Currently trading at 1778. Attempting to break through a support level that could play resistance here, so something to pay attention to. Staying above that 1763 is key. Looking at it to potentially retest these 2028s. And if we look at the spread on that, as far as profit margins, if it does, 1778, we're looking at about a 14% spread profit margin, a little bit lower, still falls in between our minimum 10 to 20% on our swing trades that we go after. And top line resistance to pay attention to would be the 2363. And if it were to hit those levels, buying into it now, we're looking at a $23 spread on it. NTCO, 1773, 2028, excuse me. So I'm going to go ahead and place a position size of 112 on it. NTCO. And next coffee and stock sessions, what I'll do is I'll give you an update on how well those fared for me. Okay. While we're sitting here, I'm sorry. Let's look back at the spot and see how we're doing. Still below 377. So trading back. Looks like it's having issues finding the support above that. I'm currently down $35 on the trade. My 387 calls are still up about 3%. My 386 calls are down 19. Just to give you an update as we're watching that. We got into... Let me go over here real quick. We got some more trades that popped up on our opportunity scanner. What was it? 73. See here, 611. Any trades you guys want to look at, feel free to let me know. I got about 7 minutes here that I'll be on here. What I'll probably do is like an afternoon update, since I won't be able to stay like I did yesterday. 7. XPER, just hit the list. I want to take a look at it with you. Looks like it's topping out at these levels, but finding support above that 2205. Been having issues getting above it for the most part since the beginning of the year. I want to see how that level has played a part in the stock price before. Been up and down for the most part. Looks like we had a strong swing about April. Shortly, this is 2020, by the way. Thought that was 2020. I mean, 2019, by the way. Thought it was 2020. Key level to watch here is the 2548, which will give us about 10%, 10 to 15% on the swing, if we're able to capitalize on that. I'm not sure if I'm going to get into this trade myself, seeing we have some slight pullback there going into March. See what the SPY is doing for us. Still trying to reverse on this downward trend it's been in. breaking this intraday trend that we had set. I'm going to keep it there. I'm not going to get rid of it just yet because it could still bounce back above it. If I were to readjust it though, not even do that. I'll do this. I'll do it this way. So basically what this is going to do is provide us where it was projected to go and then where it's actually going. So I'll turn this like, I don't know, like this magenta color. But looks like we're swinging for the most part, turning sideways currently, but attempting to swing. I'm going to look at it on these longer time frames. That 15-minute was concerning because we could see it pull back based on the momentum there, or you can see this little hook that we're seeing on the R side. We could swing back to the upside at the same time. So the 1 hour is what I've been looking at for the past few days and hoping to see go green. As you can see, it is. I got about 4 more minutes here. And like I said, look forward to me hopping back on here potentially later on this afternoon to do a weekly recap on some of the stocks that you guys have had, reanalyzing those stocks with you guys, and how to better position yourself in them, or if it's losing all momentum. A lot of things are going to show signs of losing momentum, so that's just overall across the board. Let me know how you guys are doing today. Are you seeing some green? Are you still red? Are you mixed? If you're seeing some green, what stocks are you seeing some green on? If you add them to the list, then I will at least review them, have them on the list to review on the weekly recap. I'm checking some of our chats now to see what everybody else is talking about. If you're new to the chat, feel free to shoot me a friend request so that I can add you to our Facebook chat group. Go ahead and add that. And ultimately, you can get your free membership at Millennial Investments so that you can at least get some of our announcements. I know that we have a new member here with us on our coffee and stock sessions. Why does it do that? Did it do that? It always like puts spaces in between my stuff. No, it didn't. It worked. All right. Let's see. Update on some of the accounts. Let's see where my SPY calls are. So I'm currently down $44 because the SPY is doing some weird stuff. It is finding support around the 376.15. And I think I'm going to use that as my gauge on whether or not I'm going to stay in these calls. And as you can see, it's currently trying to pull back, but I ultimately think we're going to swing. And of course, it's going to be a scenario where I sell this. As soon as I sell it, it's going to pop. Watch. But as soon as I continue to hold it, it's going to continue coming down on us. My luck. Let's see, positive on my 387 calls. Well, it just dropped a little bit, about negative 23% on my 386 calls. So I got about 1 minute left before I hop off of here. I'm currently on the sideline, but I'd love to find something to ride for the day. Otherwise, I'm just observing today. Understood. Those 3 stocks that we looked at, WTHR, what was the other one? NTCO. I'm pretty comfortable with their movements. And let me see if I can find another one. If this is an active moving list, so there's always more hopping in and out of here. So I definitely watched those 2 at least. I do have another scanner that I haven't looked at yet that I will real quick. Take an extra minute to do so. Breakout scanner. NC MI. Oh man, What are you doing, Spy? Good old Spy, man. Gotta love it. Definitely something to watch on a swing trade. Nice gap. $1 gap could get you about 20 to 25% on the swing. I want to see how it correlates with the rest of the markets so you can kind of get an idea on whether or not the market's going to weigh down on it. It does seem like it did pull back a little bit, didn't reverse with the markets there. So it looks like it's kind of moving on its own a little bit. I would say about half and half. 1 hour looks strong though. Looks like we're trading above the EMAs. This could potentially set us up for a bounce. Let's look at the 10-minute. Could pull back just a little bit, so look for a better buying opportunity around the 447 if you're interested in getting in the trade. But to set our support levels first before I speculate any more on this trade, let's pull the indicators out. A stronger support level is somewhere near right here. Let me pull back up. Picked the wrong tool. Okay. Doing some weird stuff. Those 404s. Now, whether or not we're going to hit the 404 again is based off the current trend that it's going on, and that's, I don't think it is. You could probably find a position about 444 or 440 to 450 at the cheapest, but I think this is going to bounce overall, continuing to the upside. Unless the markets just pull back heavily. But, alright guys, it's 9:32. I'm 2 minutes past the time I said I was going to be on here. I appreciate you all for watching. Like I said, feel free to add me on Facebook so that I can add you to the free chat group. Feel free to share this. If you haven't already, please be sure to like, subscribe. Ultimately, to show your support for the channel. That's all I ask of you. Other than that, like I said, I'll give you a weekly update and recap this afternoon, most likely, based on how my schedule goes for the rest of the day. From there, we can go over any stocks that you want to look at. If you want to go ahead and add them in the chat now, then we can. Other than that, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you spending the time with me this morning for this morning's coffee and stock sessions, as we always do. Some of our loyal members here that continue to join us and look at some of these market moves and stuff like that. Oh man, the SPY is coming down on me. Anyways, I got to get off here. Otherwise, I'll keep monitoring that trade, and I'll definitely give you guys a reach back out to give you guys an update. Otherwise, thank you for your time.